interviewing Leedom Gibbs. Leedom's a farm manager and oversees several farms. I thought it was a good time to go and have a chat to her, as her company has recently won the Balanced Farm Environment Award for Sustainable Farming, which I know Leedom has had a big part in achieving. Leedom has done some leadership training with me over the last couple of years and has completed my physical leadership program. I'm interested to hear how she's progressed with her leadership and the impact changing her physical habits have had on her leadership capability. If you want to just tell us kind of a bit about what you do and how long you've been doing it, sort of a little bit about your role.
Okay, so I've been doing it for about 5 years. So my role is to oversee farms, and we have people that run those farms day to day. And my job is to look after the business on behalf of the owners. So there's a bit of accounting and a bit of policy writing and a bit of HR. So it's quite it's like a job of, when you own a small business, so you've got to do all of those roles.
Yeah. So is your background farming?
No, I was brought up on a farm and I never ever imagined I would ever farm. But then when I was 35 and I was looking for a new direction in my life and I was really ready to apply myself to something and that career I'd always dreamed of, my dad at the same time was looking for someone to step into his role. Well, he was looking to give up his role. So he gave me the opportunity to step into it.
Fantastic. And was there any shocks or surprises about it?
I really didn't know. He gave me a really broad scope and I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. I had no idea.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but he was really good in that he set me up on an apprenticeship. And a self-study one, which works for me because I like a bit of self-study.
Yeah.
And in the dairy industry, we're very lucky that we've got, we pay levies to an organisation that does gives us a lot of resources, and we're a cooperative industry because we all deliver milk to the same factory, or so there are different factories, but that the competition isn't in how you getting your milk to market, because there's an automatic market, someone will come and pick it up. So everyone works together within the industry to make a more productive industry. So there's within the industry you can talk to your neighbour, and it's not like chicken farming, which is really competitive, I've heard. It's
so everyone
different.
is sort of helping each other, and
everyone helps each other, and there's this levy organisation, and then there's just so many great things out there where you can learn, and the start of the internet. So it's been a massive journey.
So when you started, what were the sort of things where you felt that you had to sort of develop and learn, that you really needed to sort of pick up the skills as you went? What sort of areas were they?
I think as things went along, HR was really important. And
so that's sort of managing the team, managing the staff.
Managing the team and the staff. And I did an HR course, and it really frustrated me because the people that I work with they're not employees, they're business partners. And so it's a really different kind of relationship.
They didn't really fit the mould.
It didn't really fit the mould, and I found that really frustrating. But so I really looked into what kind of work I could do in leadership and what I could do around just developing myself as someone who could lead people but also be part of a team, which I actually think is part of leadership. You don't have to be the chairman to be a leader. You can be anybody.
Absolutely. Totally.
Which I think has found something that I thought was really interesting. I certainly would have come into the idea to start with that the leader was the person at the top. But that's absolutely not.
No, definitely not.
At all.
You can lead from any position.
And also the other great kind of thing that I've come to realise is that ownership equals decision making, and everybody is more likely to be engaged if they have ownership, so everyone needs to have that ability to have decision making. So and how do you just make sure everything's going in the right direction was kind of Dad's kind of brief. It's your job to make sure everything's going in the right direction.
Which is huge. It's sort of like, it's quite vague, isn't it? It's like, just this one small thing, make sure everyone's heading in the right direction. Great.
But it's kind of right, that is the job.
But how do you, I think that ownership part is really, really crucial. Sort of,
that the team, own the direction you're going in, but how do you get them to do that? As a leader, how do you get them to have that ownership and that joint decision making?
Yeah, it's really tricky. So I just really was quite lucky in the last 3 or 4 months. I got to replace all my, get new teams.
Okay,
Both of my people on farm were leaving.
Yeah.
And so I did quite a lot of work. I actually read that book, the Start With Why.
Yeah.
By Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I looked into that idea of having your values, understanding, what your core value was that you were looking into. And I did a lot of work around what is it that we're doing and what kind of, because with the idea that really you want to start with people who are on the same page as you.
Yep.
Because that just makes it so much easier. And so that became my kind of crucial thing in looking for people, was that you'd be looking to find people that were already on that page.
Yep, definitely.
Because that's just such a key.
It really is, because you can't change someone's values. You can't have someone work for you and then say, okay, these are the company values and now you need to fit into this, because it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just had been reading this great book by Brené Brown. There's one thing when she learnt that it was really a good idea, that people genuinely are always doing the best they can. And that doesn't mean that you can't help them to grow and develop, but that you always have to accept they're doing the best they can at that moment. I was like, wow, that's such another real crucial kind of thing to always have in your mind. That person's not deliberately trying to do a bad job.
Yep, but it's just they can't, perhaps perform the way you want them to right at this moment. And there's things that they need that in order to take the next step.
Yeah, so I think that's sort of become my thing, learning how it is that you can recognise where someone's at, what the best they can is, and whether or not they have the capacity to do more.
Yes.
And how it is that you can kind of inspire them to get there. So that's kind of my new kind of place I'm sort of sitting at, trying to how do I be that person?
Yes, absolutely. Well, so let's sort of like backtrack a little bit, because what I wanted to sort of talk to you today about was really sort of how sort of physical habits and how perhaps they might have been holding you back when you sort of started your leadership journey, and sort of what you've done to change those habits and the effect that they've had on your leadership. So perhaps sort of talk about when you sort of started and you sort of found yourself in the deep end very much. What do you feel sort of your physical habits there that were holding you back in a sort of leadership sense?
Well, the one that I noticed really strongly when I came to your physical leadership course was the way that I made myself really small. So I was like this. Like, my elbows were constantly stuck into the side of my body, and I'd sit real forward on my chair like this, and I'd really be really tiny.
Yeah. So was that with
it's really hard to make myself do it right now.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much constantly. I noticed this, that my arms were always.
So in any situation you were doing that?
Yeah. That's just how I stood.
Yeah.
Real sucked in. And I was like, wow, I'm really trying to make myself really small.
And was that something that you'd not thought about before? Was it something that was sort of subconscious?
Totally had no idea. And that's how I know I stood all the time, and just doing it just then felt so weird. But that's how I was all the time. And I noticed that it was definitely related to the way that I just made myself small. I had this memory of being asked by the dental nurse when I was 8 to go and get the next person. That was what you did. You had to knock on the classroom door and say, it's your turn.
Yeah.
And I had to go to the oldest classroom, and I was supposed to knock on the door. And I think I stood outside that door for an hour, being too scared to knock on the door and say, to interrupt, to take up that space. It's just one of those strong memories that I have as a child, and wondering why the dental nurse wasn't coming to find out where her next patient was. She was probably stoked.
Yay!
Hour off.
No patient. Yeah.
And I think it wasn't until someone else entered the classroom or someone came out of the classroom and I might not have been there for that long, but it felt like that long. And just this terror that I had. And so that I remember that, and that was that same. It was that in it. It was that physicality.
So was that, if I make myself physically small, no one's going to notice me, no one's going to ask me anything, and I can just sort of melt into the background? Do you think that's kind of what it was, or what?
I don't know, no, because I never had a problem with being asked questions or... I think it was just more that it was the putting myself into the position of having to ask a question. So if someone would ask me one, then that's fine. I'd have no problem putting my hand up if we were prompted to do so. It was more taking the initiative to put myself into a space. And I also always felt really big in my body, you know, like I had big shoulders and this deep voice, and I was tall. And so I think the more and more I grew, the more and more I just wanted to be, just didn't want to take up so much space physically. I always felt, you know, like when you're out dancing at the pub, I always felt bigger, too big. And same on the sports field, like it was, yeah. So I just had this. So it was partly just this ability to be inside my own body.
So that's really interesting. So then it became just something that you do. But I could really see then as you took on a leadership position, it then is this incredible boundary, because it's all right if something approaches you, but not the ability to initiate, when leadership's all about initiation, isn't it? So
yeah.
So talk to me about that, sort of feeling like you had to be sort of small, and then did you sort of become aware that it was a boundary, was a barrier that was holding you back there? Or
definitely. So I already knew that I found it really difficult to make a phone call. And so when I first started my job, I could make one a day. It would take me quite a lot to get myself to that point to be able to make it, and then it would be quite exhausting to make that phone call.
Okay, yeah.
And that was a problem, because sometimes I might have to make 20 phone calls in an hour, but it was really hard to do that with, again, that initiation, that making that space, or I'd have to bring up something that was difficult, and it was like impossible. Yeah, like, so it was really holding me back. I was like, this is a real problem, but I hadn't linked it to the physicality of making myself small until I came to the physical leadership course. And that day, I can't remember what we were even doing. Must have been the one about
taking up space.
And I was like, oh wow, I just noticed that habit and could see that link to there. And so from there, I remember after that week, I went to the farm and I just practiced having my hands on my hips. And I even walked around for 2 hours with my arms like this, just purposefully pulling them outside of where I was. And I took a lot of effort just being okay with walking around, particularly, and I stood there looking at things with my hands on my hips, which felt really foreign. Yeah.
And what did that do to sort of like internally, how did that make you feel? Because it must have felt really uncomfortable and weird to start with, was it?
It was really weird, and I felt like I was being like, really like, but I just forced myself to do it. And when I would have to be in conversations with people, I would put my hands on my hips. Not because I was trying to be, like taking over space or anything, but just so I was not giving up my own. And it felt weird to start with, but then that's just, and I don't need to now because I kind of have this more, but yeah, it completely changed. I just felt okay after a while to be, to be big.
It just felt normal.
Yeah.
Because it's like becomes a new habit that you're taking up more space. So did you sort of say, so you had those things that you were sort of like just trying to put your hands on your hips. Was there any other sort of rituals that you were sort of saying, all right, this is how I'm going to, when you had to make a phone call, did you say I'm going to stand in a certain way, or do you say I'm going to walk into a room in a certain way, or anything like that?
I definitely would have, practiced a lot of this. Oh, and also at the same time, I noticed I was always leaning forward, and I was always leaning on the bench.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Just sort of support you, or...
Yeah, but it was always just that little bit forward, just that little bit anxious.
Yep.
And so I'd force myself not to, and occasionally I still find myself leaning on the bench.
Yes.
Just resting my hips on the bench. It's like, you don't need to do that.
Pull back.
Yeah. Oh, and when I drive my car like this.
Yes.
And now
it's kind of,
Again, that same thing. And now I drive, I try and put my... So I guess I practice those things all the time in places in my car, that I sit in my car taking up space, and that I make sure I have my seat in a way so that I put my head on the headrest. so that I'm always just trying to sit in that neutral body position when I'm driving.
So you're always practicing it. So it's not just like I've done this and it's good now. It's like I'm always reinforcing this habit. Yeah.
And making sure that I'm not leaning forward and that I'm not sucking myself in again.
Yeah.
Though that doesn't seem to have happened. That seems to have, the pulling into the elbows seems to have become quite natural. I guess because it took a lot of energy to suck them in.
Because you're quite tense doing that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that was probably the easiest one to rectify. But now I can make 20 phone calls an hour.
Yeah. So
talk no problem.
Talk a little bit more about sort of the impact now that just changing that, your physicality that's had on your leadership and your ability to initiate.
Yeah, so it's massively changed, the ability to make a phone call, to ask for things. To to state what I need, and to come up with the to initiate the difficult conversation as well. To call people when I need to, as opposed to waiting for when it might be a good time for them, because you never can know.
Yes.
Though I am conscientious to ask, is it an okay time to talk? Because they might be, especially in my, someone might actually be ridiculously busy.
Absolutely.
And they can call you back in an hour, but you've still initiated that contact without thinking, oh, it's a bad time. Just making the call.
Yes.
Because it's a good time for me.
Yes. What about decision making? Has it had any impact on that, do you think?
Yeah, it does actually, now that you mention it. So I'm the kind of person that needs to really consider a decision they make. So I like to do lots of research and really know my ground. I know there are people out there that can just make a decision like that, but I really need that, and definitely having that solid foundation of this is where I am and this is where I'm at, and it's okay for me to make a decision makes a massive difference. I think I've just recently kind of got to that point where I've come to this realization that Dad doesn't want me to ring him every 5 minutes. I want to spend $1,000, I could just make that decision, within the parameters of what it is that we're doing. Yeah. I can be like, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah, so that's been really important. Yeah, I think that it's just so foundational for me, that just ability to take up space.
Yep, definitely. So there's a lot of recent research, and I've just been reading this book called The Confidence Code. And so now what they're saying is that confidence is more important than capability. So, as far as sort of taking up space, how do you think that sort of has affected your confidence? And sort of in the leadership space, do you think that, what are your thoughts around like that idea that confidence is more important than capability?
I think that is definitely true, because you can always find an expert opinion out there if you need to.
Yeah.
Someone will always be there'll always be someone out there with the answer. Yeah. And no one expects you to know everything.
Yeah.
I've also come to realise.
Yeah. So true. So true. Yeah. Certainly not on the spot anyway.
No, not on the spot. Totally. So, yeah, and I think confidence even makes you more, opens up the potential for you to even find the people that do have the capability.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as long as you kind of feel that you can, what is it? When there's a will, there's a way.
That's it. That's it. And it's what goes back to what you were saying about that ability to initiate. If you can initiate, you will find a way, find the right people that have the right knowledge, build the capability. Like you said, there's lots of places you can go to build that capability, and you can get that if you've got the confidence to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And that whole thing that, I guess it comes back to that stress response and how it is that you're dealing with stress and being in that good kind of like space of taking up space, and less likely, it actually makes me a lot less likely to fall into the stress response now that I'm just thinking about it, because I'm not tense and anxious and sucking myself in and wondering, so when you've got a clear head and, a clear nervous system, once again, you're going to be confident, you're going to be capable of finding the answers that you need and even knowing what they might be.
Yes.
Because so much of it is about the question. What question am I even asking right now?
Definitely. That's so true. Yep. And if you think about the stress response, it's we're tensing, and if we're actually doing this, it's pretty tense. as opposed to being sort of more sort of, like you say, you're sort of pulling yourself back and you're actually in a more neutral, relaxed position.
Yeah.
It's much easier to have that clearer space. Yep. And so do you think the way you were holding yourself was affecting that thinking?
I hadn't really thought about it, but I would think so, because, just the whole way I held myself was so tight and so constricted that it really, because your body's under stress and because your mind is always, our mind is always going to go to the negative first.
That's right, yeah.
Because that's just the way it's programmed back in its old, watch out for the saber-toothed tiger mode.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
That the more you can do to get yourself into a good physical space so that you've got the capacity to flip to the other side and just always remember to default to the positive. It's practice. You have to do it all the time. You can't think, I've done that now. Sweet, I'm sorted. I'm a totally enlightened human being. Because you won't be.
No.
Because that is just the way our brain is programmed.
Yep, definitely. So tell me, sort of from that sort of all that learning and that development, where are you sort of now? Where are you sort of working on? So you're talking about, getting people to be part of the decision and own that, and actually be leaders, in their position within the team. Sort of, do you have something you're working towards in a leadership perspective to develop that ability to do that?
Yeah, I could see how, I'm just remembering in my mind the work that we did in the course around how it is that you're holding yourself when you're interacting with people and what you can do to kind of mirror what they're doing, to pull them, like if they start getting a bit agitated, you just do that back and they'll be like, wow.
Yeah.
They might, come back, or, you have to be cautious of not being overly, powerful.
Oh, definitely.
If they're then crumbling in front of you. That's not what you want at all.
No.
You kind of want to try and lift people up. So I guess that's something to really put in the back of my mind to remember about as I'm going forward. I guess, and personally at the moment, I'm reading the Brené Brown book, Rising Strong, and I really want to go back and read all her work now. It's such an interesting book, and she talks about the stories that we make up as we're going along in our life to make sense of what's happening for us. And it's just such an interesting concept. Firstly, for me, to find out that everybody does that, because,
Yeah.
I thought it was just me.
Yeah.
But no, that's like a human, universal
I definitely do
thing.
that. I can relate to that. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
The mind, as much as the same thing as it goes to the negative, and it makes up a great story about what's happening. So I've really been working with this book and looking at the stories I make up and really looking to apply them to those kind of situations, because I definitely still have those, like he just wanted to piss me off, or he just wanted to do a bad job, or crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And working around those ideas that everybody, wants to do their best and is doing the best that they can.
And I think that's a really interesting way of looking at things, because if we think, it is about just, we've got all these little stories to make sense of what's happening around us. The stories aren't necessarily true. And they're not necessarily fixed. We can change a story.
Yeah.
Yep. We have the power to do that. Yep.
Yeah, that the story definitely probably isn't true.
Yes. Well, yes.
That's the point.
Yes.
It's definitely not true. But to know that everybody else is making up that story as well, for me, is really a powerful thing. To know that that person over there is making up a story to make sense of it from their perspective. And you can't know what that is because you don't, and you can't know what their underlying thing is that that they're kind of orientating themselves around with. Yeah, you can't know what that is, but just for me, having that understanding that that's got what's going on for everybody is so powerful.
It really is. It really is. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I just find that really, that's really going to change the way that I do stuff. And just, I think it's time for me to really start tuning in more to other people's body language and just looking at, even more so than I did before. That I've probably got that capacity now within myself to to be like, no, I'm quite good, I'm quite stable. Now I can really pay attention to whether or not that person's feeling uncomfortable or, you know, what's going on for them. Yeah, and also remembering that other thing too of, you know, of remembering, and this is one thing that I do have to work on, to always face into the situation, because I can still be, remember we talked about this before,
definitely.
of facing into something as opposed to, you know, sort of turning your back on it, because it's going to be going on anyway. So you may as well look at it fully in the face, and
that's right.
Even if it's uncomfortable or, you know, for whatever reason.
Yes.
And I've been noticing myself and how I react around those situations, and there's still definitely are times where I'm just like, just put my head in the sand.
Put it down, turn. I know that's something that I've definitely, you know, so my personal leadership journey is definitely something that I've been working on. And I think if I think of it in a really physical sense, that helps me a lot. If I actually think physically, face a situation, that stops me wanting to sort of turn away from it and really engage with what's going on.
Yeah, look at it. And same, and I guess that's the same when you're with people and you're engaging with them to, you know, really face them and be really open and just, you know, kind of show that you're trying to have that neutral agenda in that moment so that you can see what's going on for them. I guess would be a really powerful way to do that. You know, face the situation in a real neutral kind of, I'm here, this is my space, but I'm not trying to own the whole world.
Yes.
You know, just be really comfortable and then just kind of see in that moment what that gives you, what the other person can give you from that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that would be a really powerful kind of physical way to face. I'm just thinking, look at that, it's making me feel even more comfortable than ever. Just
I was going to say, as we've been talking, you're looking even more powerful and comfortable. And it's definitely something that's very much on my agenda at the moment. And I think, so I guess one thing I didn't ask you, how long do you think, sort of what's the sort of time sort of frame around the development of these things? So, you know, firstly around sort of taking up more space. What's the time frame between sort of that sort of really tension and now sort of really feeling like that you are able to own your own space?
I must have been a couple of years.
Yeah.
It's not quick.
No.
I think the initial change is quite quick. You know, you can make that happen quite quickly because it's physical.
Yes.
But I think the integration of things and just that daily habit takes a lot longer. And it is something that you really have to keep in your forefront, which is why it's really I think why it's really good if you can find that key one.
Yes,
you know,
one that's going to
pivotally make a difference.
Yes.
And like for me, that was it.
Taking up
the space, because there was lots of stuff in that course, and I made a poster and I've got it on my wall and I look at it now and again, but that's the one I need to make sure that I'm doing for anything else to work. And so I think that because it takes so long, that it's really good to concentrate on it and really, you know, have that first.
Yes.
As opposed to think, I can work on 10 things and I can fix that.
Yeah.
All at once.
Yes.
All in 5 minutes. Sweet.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't work like that.
You've got to have a sort of, you know, foundation there to then build on, you know, the other things on top of it. Yep.
So I think, you know, it would be, I think I'd easily sit with a couple of years with this. It's such great. They found this new space in this interview. I could easily sit for a couple of years with integrating that into my practice and how I work with people, and it's just going to be so powerful anyway. And lots of the other things kind of tag onto it. You know, what's that idea that if you know, that things, you know, it's kind of like the centre of the tree and there's all these leaves that come off it anyway.
Yes.
So all those other things that just kind of grow as the tree grows.
Yes. And they're growing in a kind of organic way that you're just branching out, really, the possibilities, you know, for what you're capable of. Yes.
Yeah, so I guess that's the trunk, and so that's the new bit that that grows up.
Yeah.
It's lean like that anyway without.
Like, how does it feel? Because it's like you've probably forgotten how it feels. You know, what's going on kind of internal, you know, like we were talking about the tension.
So if I pull myself in really tight.
I'm going to mimic you and, oh golly, that's really uncomfortable.
Isn't it though? If I pull myself in really tight like I would. So you kind of imagine that your elbows are sucking into your stomach, like above your hips.
Yep.
That's kind of the key part of it.
I feel so much tension.
Yeah.
Like all the way down my arms here. And oh golly, Did you used to get sort of like sore shoulders or headaches or anything like that?
No, I didn't, but it was just like this constant, I know, it's weird, isn't it? Weird, yeah, real tension and just real, if I think about how it makes me feel, it just makes me feel like a little bit anxious and a little bit, oh, I just can't do it, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's actually pretty fun. I feel like a penguin. If I was going to try and do a phone call from this position, it would actually be like I'm kind of shaking almost because of the tension it requires. So I feel almost like it would be a hard thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite restrictive and really hard to initiate from that situation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It does. It feels really difficult.
So you were talking as well about leaning on things. Show me what that.
Oh, so I would find myself generally like this.
Yeah.
If I was ever standing anywhere, so I'd be sucked in small and.
And what does that do for sort of your? Oh, that's a bit weird.
I still do it occasionally. I still find myself doing it now and again.
It's sort of supporting yourself, isn't it?
It is. It's kind of like I'm just going to hold myself up. I can't hold myself up by myself. I need this bench to hold me up.
I need the support.
I need the support of this bench.
Yes.
Whatever it was.
Which really isn't sort of a leadership perspective, is it? No.
No, it's not at all. Yeah.
So show me sort of that's sort of the practices that.
So I spend a lot of time with my hands on my hips, and initially, walking like this, like really walking like this.
Yes, just to really own that space.
Just to own it and just to over-exaggerate it to begin with is what I did. But so sort of now when I dance, I like to dance. I do a lot of movements with my arms going sideways. Mm-hmm. I guess just to really remember that kind of.
So we talked. In the program, we talked about sort of your bubble and your personal space. Is that something now you kind of sort of visualize that you're actually trying to take up a bit more of that bubble? Is that how you see it, or how would you? I
don't really think about the bubble. I just really try and think about being comfortable, confident, and capable in the world. And how does that? How can I stand to make that true? Yeah, how can I?
So would it be sort of, talk me through the different parts, from the feet up?
Okay, so I have to have like kind of not locked knees, just slightly bent knees. A little bit bent, yeah. Which is best for your posture anyway. Pelvis not, just sort of relaxed, which is something I just learned recently. I did a ballet dance, it's not the best for your posture, so that was kind of good, important to. So you kind of want to be kind of relaxed into the floor.
Yep.
A little bit, and then I guess and then I love that thing you talked about, how your bones are supposed to hold you up.
Yeah.
Not your muscles.
Yeah.
So that same thing, is my spine holding me up? Yeah, it is. Right
and
now, my spine is holding me up.
When you think about that, when I think about my spine, I instantly kind of go sort of little jiggle to kind of like, actually, it should be my skeleton. Where's my skeleton? Yeah.
I went to a private Pilates session recently. I used to do it a lot about 5 years ago, and then I stopped. And I went, and it was amazing to go to an actual instructor and get her to just realign my spine a little bit. And I went with the intention that I would do Pilates, but I haven't. But it changed my life, just learning how to have a neutral spine, how to push your ribs down, and just like basically how to have what your posture is supposed to be like. It was real interesting. Yeah, so your ribs are supposed to sit down and not poke out like this. And so yours do anyway, but that's what I learned. It was really interesting. So there's that whole thing is your spine holding you up, is your shoulders, and then just from there, just relaxed arms.
Yeah.
Like they can, arms that can do anything.
Yes.
Sure, you need to be small, then fine. You've got to squeeze somewhere.
Yes.
But, like that's a effort as opposed to a default.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just basic. But yeah, for me, the arms is just so key.
So yeah, that was the really key piece for you.
It was a real key piece for me. Just because that's just where their memory, I guess, was held.
Yes.
To keep myself small.
And that habit was, created.
Yeah, and it just feels so different to stand like that. I just feel like from standing like this that I could do anything, which is key, really.
Yes.